Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Immersive podcast. Today, I've got a very exciting guest for you, just as always. Her name is Antonia Harman. She is the founder of Divine Empowerment. She's a healer, a wizard, an author, the author of Energy Secrets. She is been featured in The Sun, The Mirror, The Biz, many major press articles. She became rather famous for her work with who is it? Miss Vickers from the X Factor.
Diana Vickers. I did an article for the Sun and the Daily Mail, and but I've worked with a lot of interesting characters over the course of many years.
Yeah, I caught that over here, just independent of even like anything, before we had come into contact. I remember like coming across seeing that and seeing. I associated with you once I had met you later, but I just remember thinking, oh, wow, that's cool. They're like featuring things like that in the press. They're not afraid to talk about it. This is moving forward. It's moving out of the woo-woo category.
They were talking about walk-ins. I just saw a thing this morning on Kat Deely, who's an English TV presenter. She was she did an interview with a walk-in on daytime TV today, talking about starseeds and walk-ins. And I went, holy moly, that's wonderful. Yeah.
I've never seen it. Yeah. Cause I've talked to regressionists and things like that. And it's hard to even really get a lot of information on walk-in souls.
I'll forward you the link. It was a really stunning interview I saw this morning. Yeah. Anyway, hello everybody, and thank you very much for watching the show. We're very excited to be here. Thank you, Tyler, for hosting me.
And Antonia is coming from Cornwall, England today. Is that correct?
Sorry,
Antonia.
I
correct that immediately.
Okay. What's the question?
From Cornwall, England today. Is that correct?
That is correct, my dear. Thank you.
And Tampa to Cornwall, England, spreading all this positivity around. So Antonia, the first thing that I kind of wanted to get into is I know you're working on something new, something that you've had a passion about for a long time. I know you work on patients with clients with PTSD related symptoms, and you've told me that you are looking into maybe a new study, possibly a new book. What can you tell me about that so far? What can you tell me about that?
Thank you so much for asking. So I've been working with clients with traumas and with PTSD for 2 decades, but I have never formally done a study about it. I just never thought of it, to be honest. And I just was listening to the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Basil van der Kolk, it's a very well-known book. And I actually was really shocked, I think, by how underserved people with PTSD are, how that it takes a very long time to treat people, and a lot of the time they're pretty ineffective treatments. And it actually really saddened me, and I suddenly thought I really need to get into this genre, because I've actually been working with PTSD and helping them for so long, but I've never done a formal study. And I realized that I need to get this work out there in a much bigger, more formal way. So I'm going to do a study with people who are either first responders, so they can be paramedics, ambulance staff, or firemen, women, or police, and also military. So whichever forces, either veterans or current personnel. So if anyone's in that with PTSD, I'd love to have you. We're going to do 100 people. Initially, I think it's going to get bigger. I think the more the merrier. And I'm going to ask you guys to fill in one of the forms, the standard PTSD form before, and then afterwards, and do an interview with you as well. So just to tell you what I did yesterday, I worked on this guy called Mark McCann, who is a paramedic and a fireman. Now, he had 2 situations which were very, very upsetting. He had a lady whose child had drowned, and they had to go and find the body in the lake and pull the body out of the lake. Yeah. And that's traumatic in and of itself, obviously. However, the mother of the child was on the side of the bank, and her screams, gut-wrenching screams, he said could be heard for miles. And the screams
I
from
can only
her,
imagine.
I mean, yeah, it's unimaginable. And the next one's even worse if you can like fathom that. Anyway, so the gut wrenching screams have haunted him ever since in his dreams, in his waking time. As a fireman, they've got screens which tell you when your next job is. And just looking at the screens before the bells go, he would hear those screams.
Mhm.
He has a young child who's of similar age. And every time she went out the house, he'd hear those screams. So he'd constantly in the anxiety about his kid going out. So that's been haunting him for years. This,
Constant.
yeah, awful. I mean, awful. And on the PTSD scale, he rated 56 out of a possible 80. So he's, very much someone with PTSD. The second one is potentially worse. It was a double murder suicide. So very, very tragic. This lady ended up killing her babies and then hanging herself. So sorry for the trigger warning for anyone. I probably should have opened with trigger warning. I apologize for that, anyone. But it's got a happy ending. I'm telling you, this is a happy
The
ending
show
for
is
him.
the show's 18 plus. It's warning that it's occasionally
Yeah,
got explicit content. So,
yeah.
you
I
know,
won't go into too much detail, but it was, just awful. Anyway, so he got handed.
sounds, yeah, I'm
Yeah. Very, very traumatic. So he got handed a baby to resuscitate, and the unknown that the baby was actually
oh,
already passed. And he had a son at the same sort of age as that one, and needless to say, that traumatized him as well. Okay, so anyway, he's been suffering from this trauma for many
absolutely.
years. So we got him to fill out the specific PTSD forms, and then I also grade things in just for my own records to see where things are. So I say, what is it out of 10? What's the severity feeling in your body or in your system out of 10? So both of them rated as 10 out of 10, unsurprisingly. So my idea is if you can neutralize the trauma, then the PTSD can't exist because the PTSD is caused by the trauma. And what I've been able to do over many years is dissolve the emotions holding the trauma in place. So basically, it's sort of an upgrade on empathy. So empathy, people are familiar with, and you can feel someone's emotions. You immediately know when someone is happy or sad. You can cut the atmosphere with a knife. You can feel things in the room. You know what people's other emotions are. And I've taken that to the next stage. And that next stage is to be able to dissolve it. So to neutralize and completely dissolve traumas. And as I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. Anyway, I asked him to grade it out of 10, and then he has to sort of play it like a movie montage. Think of the scenes, but think of them at your own pace and a way that feels safe. Don't go too hard, too fast. Just make sure that it's safe. And you don't need to tell me anything more about the scene. That the graphic description he gave me was post. But before, he just gave me the titles of the events, and that's all I need. But he felt safe enough to talk about it afterwards. Anyway, so I managed to get
Of
him to
course.
think about that, the first trauma, the drowning, and then he rated out of 10, and it was a 10 out of 10. And then I asked him to just think about it, and I started to dissolve the emotional resonance with the story. And I managed to, we did it in several rounds, and it went to from a 10 to, my notes right here, let's tell you. We went from a 10 to a 6 to a 2 to a 0 on the drowning, and the murder suicide went from a 10 to a 5 to a 0. Zero. Within half an hour,
So
both of them.
within a half, I was going to say how long? And within half an hour. Wow, that's absolutely. And we've
Including
spoken
describing what
before,
I'm doing.
so
Yeah. He doesn't know what I do,
yeah,
so I have to
including
explain the
describing
process.
what you're doing. Wow. So that's, I mean, to me, that is, there's healing, and I've had healing sessions and things like that, but that is more magic. That's magic to me. If something is, let's give 5-10 minutes to explain. Something works in 20 minutes. And I think if anybody watched the recent episode I did with Antonia, I kind of let some things out about myself that were some traumatic incidences and such. I have struggled with what they call post-traumatic stress disorder myself for a lot of my life, but I've done a lot of work to get through that. A lot of it's been spiritual, a lot of it's been meditation based. So that's my path. But there's certainly still triggers there. So everything you've just said has completely intrigued me, and
Well, he said, do you know what he
you
said?
know,
What I thought was one of the most critical, interesting things. He said, "I can't hear her screams anymore." I mean, that cut deep. It still makes me
and
welled
that's
up now. That just got me. Just
I
saying
just
that
got
then, that got me. Yeah.
when you said that, I got goosebumps. I can't hear the screams anymore. That, I mean, yeah, and what you said at the beginning, post-traumatic stress disorder tends to not get, it's something that people hear about. We hear about it with veterans and first responders, of course. People I think have heard about it, but I don't see, and especially as, in the States anyway, coming from my lens, and as somebody who suffers or suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, there aren't a whole lot of like avenues and developed available treatments that are considered really effective or anything like that for post-traumatic stress disorder that are really the go-tos. I mean, in the
The best
US,
one is
it's very
EMDR.
much
The best one is the EMDR,
that's
which is
that's the one that I received that was actually a little bit helpful was the EMDR, but
so I'll
otherwise,
explain
I
it.
mean, they just want to kind of throw
I'll explain the
medications.
EMDR because I think it's useful to know. So it's eye movement
Yeah.
desensitization. And so what they do is, okay, I'll just, so people might not know. So, okay, so Tyler, how many windows have you got in your house? Tell me how many windows you've got in your house. So you're looking
I
up,
probably
okay, you're looking up and
looking around, right?
left, up and right. I'm not sure which way around you are, but up and left or up and right? When you recall memories, you look up and either left or right. So you can check with people. People do different ways, but often it's right. So you either look up and left and up and right.
Okay.
When people lie, they tend to look down and left or down and right. So that's a good test if someone's lying or not. But recall happens with your eyes. You go, how many windows? And you go, 1, 2, 3. And you count them, but your eyes go up to one direction to recall memories. This is how this
Oh.
stuff works. So basically what they do is when you recall a memory, your eyes move into a particular position, always upwards, left or right. And what they do is they follow the fingers. So you start recalling a memory and start thinking about the story or telling the story. Often it's just thinking. And then they move their finger around like that in front of the eyes. And that desensitizes it because the memory is stored when you go up and left or up and right. And that it jumbles it up and the hold that memories have in your psyche dissipate because that's how the EMDR actually works. But my one is, it's just an upgrade on that, really. It's similar-ish, but it's actually very
What it
pointed.
sounded like.
And it's literally, think about, I can dissolve the emotional resonance with the trauma. I've been doing it for so long. I forget the power of it, but I've been working on people for so long. I mean, I'm just talking to my students about it because we're going to do this, my student practitioners about it. I'm going to do this huge study, but I just mentioned it to a couple of them. Erin, for example, and she just said, oh, I worked on PTSD. I had a friend who was in Hurricane Katrina, and that was gone, within a single session. This is typical. We've been doing it for so long. We just do it all the time. So what we're looking for is we're going to start with 100 people. We want military personnel or first responders and work on this. And then we'll do a little interview afterwards. I've got an interview from Mark from afterwards. It's now on my YouTube channel, which we'll link below, but Antonia, Harman, Divine Empowerment. And then you can see what he said in his words. But we're going to do interviews with people, only a very short one, and have a whole series of at least 100, probably going to grow quite quickly. But we want people who have had those sorts of traumas and just delete them really quickly. And then I can write a study and then I can get this work out there to help as many people as possible. I can also do groups. I don't need to do one at a time. I can do at least 10. I could probably do 100 people in one go. I've been doing this
That
for so
would
long.
be once you get into that level, that's going to be so impactful, Antonia. And I will be right here, as large or small as I am, able to promote what you've got going on.
I
Of
want to work for
course,
the
she's
military.
mentioned her YouTube channel.
I feel so bad for all the people who are, who've suffered and who've given their lives over really, I mean, just to help other people.
Amen.
They've done beautiful things like veterans. I mean, I don't necessarily think that all the wars are necessarily just, but I think the people who decided to go to war were doing it for the right reasons to help other people because they believed in their country and they're true
Right. The war
patriots.
didn't have to be just, but the individuals involved were individuals in some cases. Of course, I
And they
understand what you're
did it for
saying
the
there.
right
Yeah, I
reasons.
think.
And also all the first responders, they're going to save people who have had some sort of awful disaster and they get screwed up for the rest of their lives. And one of the lines that he said
And
was,
yeah.
one of the things he said to me was that everyone in the services has at least one case that haunts them. That's what he said.
Oh
So
yeah. I can only imagine.
So, if I could end up starting to
Sorry.
work for like big things like the military, they've got one in the book I was just reading, the Body Keeps the Score. It's fascinating because it was saying that they spend 1 billion a year on a really ineffectual medicine. And if you could just, this
Of
works. And
course.
the thing is, if people can connect to it, it works first time every time. This isn't, so I've been doing this, as I said, this particular energy for at least 15, 20 years. And I've got
And
250
is that the
students.
energy cellular, the ECR that's kind of
ECR
referred
is
to,
different. No,
like on your
this
websites
is
and
called the
things?
big eraser. I've got
Okay.
15 levels. I've got so many things. This is the big
Okay.
eraser. Um, but
Cool.
it's in my experience, I've got 250 students. It's never come back in anyone that I've ever worked on. And I've got my students who've worked on people, and I've done big crowds as well. We must have done at least 100,000 people, probably 200,000 people between us over the last 20 years. It's never come back, not once.
Yeah, just so for people who are just being introduced to Antonia for the first time, Divine Empowerment, her organization, is very well developed. It's very well respected. Many people, high clientele from various industries are involved with Divine Empowerment over there in the UK and all across the world. She does this stuff via Zoom, and it looks like you have dozens of practitioners working with you with that organization. So I can only imagine the amount of collective, impact and that you've had on the amount of people over the just the sheer time you've been doing it,
Yeah.
which was also something I remember you telling me that you got into this type of thing
20 years ago.
a little bit earlier than in your life, 20 years ago or so. So that's now you're really in it. You're at that point. I want to see that next case study from Antonia Harman on PTSD. I'm excited to see
It's
it
going to be
because
really fun, but
I
because
think
then
there's
when
going
I
to be great results.
Well, that definitely there's going to be great results, and I should have done it probably 10 years ago. But hey ho, and then I can start approaching. I can approach the big podcasts and say, "Look, here's a study. Here's 100 veterans and military people and
Yes.
first responders. Here's 100, and then here's 1,000. Because the thing is, I'm going to do 100 by myself, but then I've just started mentioning it to my practitioners, and there's 33 in the top level, and they could all start working on it now. And if they did a few each, and we can also do groups, we don't have to do them one on one. I reckon we could get 1,000 people in a study in a month or two. And then we get all of, then they just do 3-minute
Yeah.
interviews. It's easy enough to do. And then we get, the results before and afterwards. And that's something that the medical industry is not going to, and the papers and the, press and the book and publishing house, they're not going to be able to turn it down because I'm going to have so much data, because you can't argue with data. So, yeah.
Of
So if
course. Yeah,
anyone,
you absolutely cannot.
and then
Yeah.
interviews as well. So
And
you're going
that's
to
how you've
just a
gotten where
very
you are.
Mhm.
And where you are is, proven, results with your methods. I mean, you over the past 20 years, you didn't become the sun calls you the wizard who the TV star host who left to become a wizard. um, which is awesome. Like that's amazing because you really are a wizard. I don't like to say witch because people like sometimes kind of take a negative connotation with that. But what you do is pure effing magic. Um,
Let me tell
just
you the
I'm still
difference.
flabbergasted as a
There's a difference between a
tell
witch
me.
and a wizard, and it's not what people think it is. This is really interesting. So, there's a common misconception that a witch is female and
Hmm.
a wizard is male. That seems to be the way that people have thought about it. That is untrue. You can have male and female witches, you
Yeah.
can have warlocks, which are male and female, you can male and female wizard. It's actually about the style of healing that you're doing. So witches use something
Okay.
called lower level magic or 3D magic. They're using an intermediary to help them do the work. So they're using a potion or a spell or cards or a wand or a
Herbs,
coven or
something.
something. They're using an intermediary of some type to do what they're trying to
Okay.
do. Wizards are people who are awakening to their true nature. I think we're gods and goddesses with amnesia. And a wizard is using pure energy. I don't need anything external because I've awoken myself to part of my becoming a god, but small g, not a big G, but becoming fully human and waking up to our
Right.
true nature, our true divine nature, because we are all one and we are all God. When we wake up to our true
Fat
divine nature,
rising.
some of our spiritual cities or superpowers become awakened, and the ones that I have are around healing primarily, but I also call myself a wizard rather than just a healer because I can do things outside of healing and I'm using pure energy. So yeah, I mean things like spoon bendings
100%.
are my
And
level two. Go on.
point, I mean, you are recognized by major press and mainstream publications as a true wizard, and they even publish what's your I mean, not to talk money, but they publish your monetary success in it, which congratulations. I mean, of course, in this world, money is still very important. We need it. Um, but that's something I think is important to include. A lot of people need to see that, oh, you can be a wizard and you can like survive in this 3D world if that really is somebody who you are. If you really are a healer, to see that Antonia Harman left the TV mainstream, television host world to be a full-time wizard, and to see just a number there that catches their eye, that makes them think, "Oh, I could really make my life this." If one truly is gifted and truly seeking that path like yourself, you're a shining example for that, because I mean, you're about as legit as it gets. Hard to take that away from you, and I can't wait to see what you can't wait to see what you do going forward, especially with the PTSD stuff, because as we've spoken before, I have a personal connection to that. And something else I want to throw in is, of course, great respect I have for veterans and first responders with, who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Something I've heard this from many people, and it's something I've thought myself, and I felt kind of comfortable saying it out loud since I've heard it from so many others who have PTSD related symptoms. Is, they feel a lot, and I'm not speaking for anyone in particular, I'm just saying something that I've heard, but a lot of people feel as if, they don't have the right to talk about their PTSD, or not complain, but to open up about it if it's from something of if they're not a veteran, if they're not a first responder, if they don't fall into one of those categories that's typically associated with post traumatic stress disorder. And I
Mm.
think that's too bad, because of course there's a post traumatic. It's not, of course, those places that first responders and vets go, or, soldiers go into, are inherently filled with trauma and just,
I think a lot of
terror.
people have
But
PTSD. I
there's,
think, I mean, and even things which are the worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that happened to you. So it could be that you grew up
amen.
in a war zone, or it could be that you grew up in a nice house, but it's literally the worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that happened to you. And I think people need to understand that although it might sound minor
I
to
agree.
you, it's actually major to that person. Is a really interesting way of thinking about it. I mean, and I think a lot of people are traumatized from the COVID monstrosity, crazy world that we were living in. I think people, and that what's really interesting is people are aware of post-traumatic stress disorder. There's also something called pre-traumatic stress disorder, which is really interesting. So when
Heard of.
you're told you're going to kill your grandma if you don't wear a mask and have that malarkey, um, you know, then you can freak the heck out because you're told you're going to kill grandma if you don't go and do as you're told what to do.
Mhm.
So that's really, really
Because you're
interesting.
set up.
Pre-traumatic stress is it can be as traumatic to you as post. It's a big thing. But I have an idea, and I
Yeah.
think, what about, would you be up for, Tyler, and everybody watching? I can dissolve a trauma in you, Tyler, now, and anyone who's watching, and they can follow along and it will dissolve their trauma. It will be embedded in the video and it works. I don't have to do it individually on people. You can literally follow along and we can dissolve a trauma. Would that work for you, Tyler, and everybody watching? You up for that?
I'm certainly 100% open to it, Antonia. And it's, a little bit of a theme on the show that I certainly am open to all methods of healing
Okay.
that
All
people are
right.
willing to offer. I'm actually really grateful for it. So, yes.
Okay, all right. So what the process is I'm going to ask. So everyone following at home, it's fine that this is pre-recorded, and if you want to go back and rewatch this as many times as until the trauma's gone, or work on different traumas, no problem at all. So what I'm going to do is ask everyone at home and also Tyler to think of a trauma, which is like something out of 10, something quite severe. It can, whatever it is, just think of a trauma and then grade it out of 10. And then we just need the title of it. So you can write it down for yourself, or Tyler can tell me in just a mo. And then I'm going to ask you to think about it at a pace that it's comfortable to you. I don't need any details about it, just the title of it. And then we're going to dissolve the energy which is stuck. So the reason that we don't remember what we had for lunch last Wednesday is because there's no emotional component to it. The only things, the memories that stick, is because there's trauma involved or there's joy involved. You remember when something amazing happened, you remember when something bad happened. So because there's emotion, otherwise it just doesn't stay in our psyche. So what we do is dissolve the emotions associated with it, and then it just drops away from our psyche, and then we no longer have that thing haunting us. So I'm going to get you to think about the trauma. You don't have to give me any details at all. And I'm going to dissolve the emotional resonance. We're going to do it in a couple of rounds. And then we're going to get it from like a high number to a low number, and then see where we are. And then everyone can do that at home and hopefully have a lovely experience too. Cool? What's the
Absolutely,
name of the
Antonia.
trauma, Tyler?
Mine is, not so much the passing of my mother, but having to watch her go from a strong woman to, so sick and watching her deteriorate was very traumatic for me.
Understandably.
She passed recently, so that was something that was traumatic for me, and I'm still having a hard time processing.
Okay. All right. So if you can just close your eyes and just think about that story and tell me what that is out of 10, please. Is that a 10 or an 8? Where are you?
It's a good 9 out of 10.
It's a good
9 out
night.
of 10.
Okay, so just think about it at your own pace, and everybody following along at home, do exactly the same thing, please. And let's go into it. So just think about it, and I will delete the emotional resonance of it. Okay, that's the first round complete. So Tyler, where are you out of 10? And everybody at home, where are you out of 10?
So honestly,
Great. 7. Okay.
lesser,
So what happens is
almost.
Sorry, go on.
Feels like it was like a slow bit of acceptance and understanding, but not entirely, but like very quickly. Like I don't know if people can see my goosebumps, but yeah,
Okay.
7.
It comes in like layers. So we're going to do probably 3 rounds to see how you go, but we want to get down to a 0. So it's normally around 3 rounds. So we have to give a little pause in between, a little check-in, and also it's sort of, you get to a hard bit and you have to just give it a couple of minutes for that just to soften, I guess. And then we can just go into another round and then another round. So for the people who are watching at home, if your trauma's already gone, then please choose another trauma, or you can keep going on the same one. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. And you can keep rewatching this video and working through various different issues that you have, should you want to. So ready for round 2? We'll keep going. All right, same process, just think about it. Okay. That's the second round. What number are you on now, Tyler and everyone?
Truthfully, 5.
Yeah, I felt 4, but yeah, great. So we'll do another round and we'll get you down to 0. How's it feeling though? Liberated, lighter? What's going on?
Liberating, lighter, and I feel now what you said, watch this more and more, because I think I think I will understand why a little bit more, but the feelings, I can feel what Antonia's doing. Just so for people out there, I'm sorry to pause on this, but when she says I could feel a 4, I mean, I close my eyes and I can't even see what Antonia's doing until I rewatch these, but just for the people watching, I do feel what's going on. If you ever see any involuntary actions, any twitching or anything like that, that's not me doing that on purpose. It's, I also think you have to believe, you have to have intent. You can't have your mind actively fighting against these kind of treatments. So
If you can
being
feel it, I
open
can
to
feel
these
it.
kind of things.
They have to be able to
I
tap
love it.
into it. That is my tagline. If you can feel it, I can heal it. If you can relate to it and allow yourself to open up and just think about it and allow yourself to feel the emotions, I can heal it. And it works every single time. If you are completely blocked or shut down or despondent, can't go there in some way, then you need to be able to get to the stage where you can go there. But it's a very safe environment because I don't need any details. You can call it something entirely different as long as you know what it is. I just need it for reference to go back and then talk about it afterwards. So it's just you thinking about
Mm,
it. You don't need to re-traumatize yourself by telling graphic details about anything ever. I mean, afterwards in an interview potentially, but otherwise you don't even have to do that.
pause you there. Yeah, I just wanted to give that a piece.
Thank you. Next round. All right, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That looks gone to me. How's that feeling?
2.
2. Okay. Just the last little bit. Give it a second. I think it's just unraveling and working its way out because when it's gone, it feels like it hits a brick wall and it feels like it's hit a wall. Maybe another layer. We'll give it a second just to see if there is another layer. And if there is, we'll do it. If there isn't, we don't need to. It's magic. This is all in my level
It
1
is.
class as well. Like I've been teaching energy healing for so long, and like my level 1, which I've got on my website for 75 pounds, which is $99. It's normally 333, but I'm doing a special deal, and you learn how to instantly dissolve emotional traumas from level 1. It's not quite as quick as me, but you can still do it in level 1, and then it just gets bigger and bigger. And then I work on physical illnesses. I had a friend of mine with a benign uterine tumor, and that was gone in 10 minutes by me working on it. It was like in agony, and then it just disappeared. And then she had a scan 48 hours afterwards, having a scan before, scan afterwards, vanished.
And so to talk about what I've gone through just in the past 2 or 3 minutes is I started to kind of like tear up a little bit, almost in like like a purge kind of way. Like I started to tear up and have that feeling. And you were speaking, give it a minute, which is funny because like there's that energetic exchange between us going on right now because I'm on the same page as you. I'm sitting here thinking with full intent about the very memory that you told me to think about and nothing else. And you hit that point of like, oh, I'm gonna break, I'm gonna purge, and that's okay too. Like men out there, if you have that, you're gonna tear up, and you don't have to hold it back. Cry if you have to. I mean, don't go around crying around Target and Walmart and stuff. You might start to get a weird reputation, but it's okay. But what happened to me was I started to tear up a little bit, but I didn't hold it back, but it stopped. I didn't go further. It didn't progress. I was like, I'm going to feel this feeling. I don't even care if I'm on camera. But that didn't happen. I didn't weep. Um, I feel good right now. I feel like there's things to else, but details don't matter. It's how I feel right now. It's the energy I feel right now.
Where's it out of 10 now? Is it still on a 2 or did it go down? Or is
It's
it
no,
neutral?
it went down. It's neutral. It's gone down.
0.
Um,
Yeah, I can see that. 0.
that was the point. That too was like I said that I think like, and no, I had this. I guess like you say, kind of like that brick wall. That moment of no, you're not going to break it all. This is not an issue for you. Like of course, I mean, events have consequences, but we can choose to see them in a proper light that's not damaging and traumatic to us any longer. And I use that one for a specific reason because it's recent and
Intense.
it's recent. It's something I'm very actively still in tune with, and I see reminders of all the time. So I
Mm.
kind of wanted to. I kind of
That's what was
tested the
most
wizard there
pressing
a
in
little
your
bit,
life. It's the one that you needed to clear,
and
wasn't it? And it's also a challenge for me. That's a big one for you.
um, wow, that's quite amazing. And Antonia, gonna say it again. Absolute energetic exchange between us. I hope anybody watching this episode got to really dive into that with Antonia and I. Any trauma that you're experiencing, anything that you thought of, and again, like she said, rewatch the video. Try it again if you didn't get the feeling out of it right. If you fell out of pace at first, something to that effect.
Doesn't really
Retry and
happen.
watch. That was a very powerful experience for me. So I have to say thank you for that particular few moments there, Antonia. I mean, I do believe in magic. I say that all the time. Magic is real. a lot of times it's my blanket response to something that I just don't know the answer to. I'm like, well, magic's real, Uh, wow. But maybe one day I can be in the sun or the mirror or something big over here in the States, and I can talk about how
You can
Antonia
join my
Harman
wizard school, Tyler. You need to join wizard school and learn all these things for yourself. It's really fun.
I'm not even lying. I've become more and more intrigued by your work just in the past month or so, because we did an episode on your show, and I've done a little reading up on you since, just to be prepared, etc. And well, now I've felt the energetic exchange, and that's really where that's where I make my decisions from. Is how's the energy feel, and uh, there's this powerful energy within you. She's the real deal. I love it. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next with the PTSD study, with your next book, with divine empowerment in general, with your practitioners, and everything you're currently doing. It's
Oh,
just
I'm doing
being
so many things.
continued. Doesn't have.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm doing a subscription service, which is really fun at the moment. So the best way to sort of get access to me is really the subscription service, and it's $55 a month, which is, sorry, pounds, which is I think $78.
like 70
Um,
bucks or so.
I think it's $78, something like that. Anyway, so I do 2 live healings myself, and then I've got 2 of my practitioners which do 2 live healings as well. And then you've got access to the whole of the library, so you can go back and watch them. I did a manifesting one because I've got very good manifesting techniques. So I did one of those last month. We do sort of so it's like pick your own adventure. So they get to choose what they'd like me to do, apart from ECI, energetic cellular regeneration, which we'll get onto. I don't do that one because that one is a high ticket item. But we do various different things that they want to do. And then this month we've got Erin's doing sound and energy and color. I think she's doing on Sunday. We had one with connecting to the trees and making divination cards, one with psychic studies, another one I've got such talented team behind me. All of my practitioners are healers in their own right, and they're blooming amazing at doing what they're doing. So they run 2 workshops a month, and I run 2 workshops a month. And then you get to play with all of these things, and that's a really, really good way to get in. And plus you've got this huge library that you can access at any point that you want, or you've got your classes as well, or you've got one-to-one healings. But ECR, let's get into ECR, because that's a wild one. Are you ready?
Yeah, I read
Okay.
about it a little bit deeper, the energetic cellular regeneration. And I'm interested in DNA and cellular memory and things like that. So, yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about exactly what ECR is and what you guys do with it? That's cool. And I just want a little footnote, what you said about divine empowerment. You guys are moving the right way. You're moving far and you're moving together. It's a group with the same intent and the same mindset. And while you have different things you bring to the table, you're moving so far and you're making such waves because I think that very, very thing, that variety in talents of your team. So yeah, ECR, Antonia, what can you tell me about and the listeners about that?
Yes. Okay. So TikTok changed the world. I had this TikTok video that I watched, which was talking about, I mean, goodness, there are 2 scientists called Dr. Becker and Dr. Warburg, who have done studies on
Okay.
cellular regeneration. Now, what happened was one of them is an orthopedic surgeon who ended up working for a veterinary college and trying to figure out. He just decided to try to figure out what happened to salamanders. Now, salamanders can regenerate a tail, a leg, or half an eyeball. So what he
Right.
did,
Okay. So there's a reason.
yeah. So then he thought, how the hell, this is in the 70s, did they regenerate a cell, a leg, or half an eyeball? So he thought, I know what I'll do. I'll cut the leg off a salamander, and I will try to figure out how the heck he's regenerating his leg. So we decided to look at the electrical current around the leg. And he looked at the electrical current, and there was this the surge of energy and then a pulsing around where the leg had formerly been. Like literally electrical current. So surge of energy by pulsing. And he managed to measure that with voltmeters and all those sorts of technical things, but a long time ago.
Wow.
So he managed to see it. So what he did was he thought, how
Very interesting.
about if I cut the leg off a frog, which doesn't regenerate, and get the same electrical current around the missing leg, Will the leg regenerate? Hypothesis. Bloody well did. It worked.
My hypothesis would have been yes.
It worked.
It
Yeah, it
seems like it
worked.
did.
And I mean, that also irks me because you're just thinking of so many people who are amputees and they don't have access to this in the 70s. That makes me honestly want to get angry. Anyway, so that there was
Yeah.
that. And then the other one was, I always muddle them up, Dr. Warburg and Dr. Becker. The other one was a Nobel Prize laureate who was working at the voltage of cells. And he worked out that if you were in very good health, your voltage was at 70 to 90 millivolts. If you were in poor health, it was 30 to
Okay.
50 millivolts. And if you were something like had a tumor, it was 20 millivolts. So I've got all this percolating through my brain. And then a friend of mine, Lisa, had a fight with a blender, one of those soup maker blenders, and she stuck her finger inside this blender and she mangled two of her fingers. It's a gross story.
Yeah. It's no fun.
She ended up with 5 stitches on a singular finger, and fingers are tiny. It was absolutely, it was mangled.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, bad. So she went to the doctor and she had it stitched up. She had to keep going back and getting it stitched up, and then she reduced the time for to get it redressed. Then after about 6 weeks, it was only once a week she was going. So she went to the doctor, and it wasn't really getting that much better. It was still in a big mess. So they said it was necrotic. Now, necrosis is when you have leprosy, gangrene, or frostbite.
The cells that are no longer living, or they're dying cells. Is that
It's
correct?
rotting flesh. Let's just be honest about it. It's
Yeah,
rotting flesh. It goes black and it doesn't.
Trying to like speak. Yeah.
No, it's rotting
Okay.
flesh. And the problem with it as well is it expands. So if you so what so you'd have to amputate it. That's why we have amputation.
Spreads.
So what they
Right. If something comes up further past the little mark on the leg, they know it's something that's spreading, and they have to amputate, etc. Yeah.
there is no return from necrosis. So anyway, they were talking about skin graft. So in a skin graft, what they're going to do is scrape off all of that rotting flesh and a bit more around it because you've got to be safe. And then they were going to take a bit of skin from somewhere else in her body and then stitch it on there intrinsically. So they started talking about this, and then she does a video with me because I've done a few videos with her, and she said my finger is necrotic, and I went and she was in Italy. Then
Right.
I had these scientists' minds in my head, Dr. Warburg and Dr. Becker, and I was thinking about them, and I thought, what is the voltage of your finger? 20, same as cancer. And I thought, if I raise the voltage of your finger, can I regenerate it? Hypothesis.
And how did you test the voltage of her finger at that time?
Tuned into it. She was in Italy and I was in Cornwall. So I just tuned into it. I
Okay.
dowsed it. I use a pendulum to check things sometimes. I just dowsed it and tuned in. It was 20.
Yeah.
So then I invented a new style of healing on the spot for her and raised the voltage of her finger from 20, and it went up, and it went up to about 100. No, not that quickly. Sorry, that took a while for it to go. It went up to about 50 or something in that one session. But she could feel things moving, and it was there was no feeling in her finger, but she could feel energy moving about in her finger. She went back to the doctor a week later, and they unwrapped her finger, and it was no longer necrotic. It was no longer rotting after a week. Yeah. So I ended up. Yeah.
Process. Yeah, within a week, or it could have been within a day, but yeah, by that week it was
for a week.
effective.
Yeah, she never opened up.
So yeah, it could have been a day.
No one knows. So she ended up going. Yeah. So then after this was in a year and a half ago. So she ended up. It started to regrow and rebind from the inside because it was hollow. So it started to re-knit itself, and it started to fatten and flesh up again, and then it's regrown, and now she's got a small scar. It's fine. And at the same time, I decided to do my face to see if I could reverse age, because I just thought everything else in my body works quite well. And if I can raise the voltage in my face and my whole of my body, maybe I can reverse age. And who doesn't want to reverse age? So I'm 43, which is how I've been doing this thing. She's done it. I'm going to show you before and after. So, and this, I've also reversed one of my students, practitioners, Karen, had perimenopause. So she was lackluster, no energy, And her menstrual cycle was very sporadic, and she had no brain fog, no energy to get on with everything. And her within I did the session on her, and then she suddenly had her vitality back, and then she got her cycle back, and now she's no longer menopausal or perimenopausal. So this is my face.
Yeah.
This is my face from
Mhm.
you can see the date, September 22. Compare it to here.
September 22.
Yes, if you look at this line here, that one, where's that gone?
Yeah.
Make it happen.
You,
Yeah, that
you're
one's gone. That's gone a lot
less
here.
glow. You're much more glowing. You're less, not that you were, anything was wrong with you, but you just, in comparison, right here, you're
I look a lot
glowing
younger.
in
I look a lot
person.
like my face
You
looks
look much younger.
chubbier there, but that's actually jowls. I'm heavier now. I'm like, I don't know, 4 kilos, like half a stone or 7 pounds. Just trying to do every language for everyone. Heavier now,
Yeah. So,
and so I look heavier there, but
but less.
it's like a facelift. And then my eyes, and then
Wow.
my nose
Yeah.
there,
I
my
mean, it's
forehead
100%.
lines.
Everybody could see the change. I mean, it's quite obvious, obviously. And yes, that is a true picture from September 2022. We don't do any fakes or anything like that here. So yeah, and
Well, you can look
Antonia,
through
you
my
are
videos. I mean, the thing is,
very impressive.
my YouTube library and look and see what my face used to
And
look like.
yeah,
It's like now it's all on video. I don't know how to do any
it's
clever
all
editing.
yeah. It's been documented. Yeah, absolutely. Again, like she's the real deal. And I love, that's what I love about doing this, is speaking to people who are the real deal, who are really doing what they're passionate about. And that's, it's just absolutely incredible. And when that happens to be magic, I mean, okay, then count me in. I'm like all ears. I'm all in. um, Absolutely incredible. The
My
reverse
new stuff is
aging. I mean, who
energetic
wouldn't
weight loss.
be?
I've like managed to. The new stuff's really interesting. I haven't even told my students about this really because I'm teaching it on my level 15 in about 2 weeks' time. So there's a theory about how Ozempic, people are aware of as this new weight loss drug, which has taken the world by
Of
storm, and
course.
all the celebrities look kind of a bit too thin, really, at the moment. But basically, how the heck does Ozempic work? So I've been studying into that, and there's something called the set point theory, which is really, really interesting. So it used to be like what happens to most people is you lose weight, and you use a lot of willpower and you exercise and you do really well because, really losing weight is about a calorie deficit. I'm sorry, it is. Don't eat processed
Of
bad
course.
food. Stop eating bad food that isn't food, especially in America. You eat non-food food. It's terrible. Eat real food
Right.
and have a calorie deficit. You will lose weight. That's just how it is. That's just how it works. But the problem that people have, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to
Absolutely.
get there. Yeah. The problem that people have is that they lose weight and then they suddenly get ravenous and they start going, "Mum, mum, 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 mum," and they eat all the wrong stuff. I'm guilty of it too,
Continue.
especially if you have a drink. Then you just eat all the bad stuff and then suddenly you've put the weight bloody back on. After 5 years,
Yeah.
only 10% of people have maintained the weight loss. So what happens is your body has a set point and it keeps on. It wants to pull you back up to your fattest. Your fattest point is your set point because we are only now in a
Mm.
stage where we don't have famine. There is in the Western world, there are obviously famines in places, but for
In the
anyone who's
Western
watching
world,
this, you're unlikely to be underfed. If you've got a smartphone or a computer, you probably can afford food. And we have too much food, if anything.
likely, yes.
It's
And
stingy.
probably too much food. I feel guilty about it. I have leftovers and food that goes bad in my refrigerator. And what do you
I
do? I
don't.
mean, it's the world we're in.
I don't do that. I cook everything from scratch and make sure I bloody well eat it. Anyway, I'm very careful about that.
No,
I
I
know
just meant when when I do, even if it's a little, I'm very conscious of that. It seems like you are too. So we have
I
that in
just don't
common.
do
But
it.
yeah, it's always
I'm
something to
so
watch.
conscious
So
of it that it doesn't
yeah,
happen. Anyway, but I went to chef school. I'm a trained chef, so I can, I'm good at that sort of stuff. Anyway,
Oh, that's
so what
cool.
it is your set point is your fattest point, because it used to be that we used to have a lot of famines, and famines was a real big problem. So the
Of
person, the
course.
last man standing was the fattest person. So what your body knows to be true is the fatter you are, the more your likely chance of survival is. But your set point keeps going up. So the fattest you are, then you diet, and then it goes, hang on a minute, if we were a bit fatter or that level of fatter before, then we'd be more safe. And then it makes you ravenous, and then you go back up to it. That's your set point theory.
So it's like a rebound effect to raise that set point.
Yeah. So that's why people don't lose weight long term, less than 10%, lose it after 5 years. So I've reset the set point. I've deleted the set point, what I've done. And it's really interesting. So one of the people in the studies has lost a stone, 14 pounds, 7 kilos in 3 weeks. Another one has lost 3.5 kilos, which is half of that in the last couple of weeks. Mine is annoying because I'm losing like 1 or 2 kilos, and then I have gas and I gorge. And then I keep putting it back on again. The
Yeah.
problem with Ozempic is that actually you lose the joy of food. But I'm not getting hungry in the way that I was, and I'm certainly not getting ravenous in the way that I was. We're still ironing out the kinks, but it looks like it would be a long-term solution, and it would be a more gradual weight loss. Ozempic, you'd stop eating and you don't have any joy for food. This would be
Immediately.
but this is at your pace, so you can choose to take food or lose food, and you just don't get hungry, and you suddenly don't. But the thing is, when you come off the Ozempic, your set point, it lowers your set point whilst you're on it. But as soon as you come off it, then you start eating again, and then you're on Ozempic for the rest of your life. This one is deleting your set
Of
point, and then
course.
it means that you can just not have that set point pulling you back up. And then if you just do the right diet and exercise, as we started, whole foods, proper foods, real foods. I mean, I'm a big believer in meat. Having real foods and
Yeah, I'm a
actually,
meat eater too.
and eating less real foods and moving more, and eating less, and then but then you won't put it back on again. So that's my new stuff, is about that. That's really fun. And yeah, PTSD study.
It's amazing, Antonia. And a lot of that ties into, just what we as Homo sapiens humans are naturally. It really just ties into what we really naturally are. And I think that's a good point. We kind of live in the West, for the most part in the West, and everywhere really. We kind of live in a world that is it's almost too convenient. It makes all the things that we were as humans for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years different. All the driving forces that we used to have aren't, for the most part, aren't really there. But we have to have something to overcome. So, in a world of excess food and things like that, I mean, yeah, we find ourselves in this crazy place where we're eating way too much food, but now we're taking Ozempic to try to curb that, and that's a broken loop of a cycle. The um, your method, for example, is to me, a much more viable way of looking at things than just, let's gorge, but then let's counteract it with it's just kind of a constant struggle, it seems. And kind of goes back to the root of we just have things too convenient. We've gotten kind of too used to it. And maybe we should think a
We're
little,
away
and
from the
that's
land.
worked for me,
We're just away from the land
away
too
from
much.
yeah,
There
hit the
was an
nail on the
inner
head there. Absolutely.
there was a study years ago for inner city kids in London and some of the UK cities, and they asked them to draw fish. And do you have fish fingers over there? Do you have fish sticks, like fish fingers?
Yeah,
It's
they
like a
call them
block
fish
of
sticks.
fish stick. I think they're called fish sticks in America, like breaded, like a block of fish breaded. And they
Yep,
drew fish
like
fingers because they
fake
didn't know
fish
fish.
blocks.
Yeah, they drew fish fingers because they didn't know what fish looked like. I mean, that's just wild. They didn't know what
Mhm.
an actual fish looked like.
It is.
Mm.
And it's yeah, I mean, who knows? Even ourselves, I mean, unless we've done extensive work, what was programmed into us that is influencing us still from, very, very early childhood. And I'm sure that's something that you've delved into ad
Relentlessly.
infinitum. But yeah, those little early childhood things, I've been told things that happened when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 months old, whatever. that actually can still have an effect on a person, even in their 30s, 40s, whatever. It's just I don't know. It's what I've been told over and over again. It seems to be the general consensus. If people can get to a place where they're not operating from, they've been able to kind of clear those things, the major traumatic things that they've been through in their own way, and are able to understand them and move on with them or move on without them, whatever's healthy. And two, start to just undo that empty the cup, start undoing that programming to think certain ways. Now, it's not like everything that everybody's learned ever has been wrong, but I guess we've seemingly as a culture been conditioned to think a certain way, to have certain confirmation biases, to have cognitive dissonance, and to not be so connected to self, not be so connected to the land, not have that oneness with everybody. And I mean, that's kind of what the ascension is. This whole ascension movement that people talk about. That's what I feel. That's the energy that I feel from all of us. And you seem to just really embody that as a woman, as a wizard, as a practitioner, as a healer, as a human. And that's why you're the perfect person to have a conversation with. And I'm just always honored to hear about what you've got going on and your take on things, because it's so refreshing. And yes, absolutely.
Wow, thank you. Amazing. Yeah, so I mean, if anyone's interested in becoming a wizard, and I've got my workshops, we're going to put a link down below for to get my level 1 for 75 and 333. I have a book. This is my book, Energy Secrets: How to Live to Your Full Potential. It's being released in the States sometime this year. I can't remember when. But it's available on Kindle and Audible. And I did the narration, so you can hear my voice talking about my book if you're
You can
interested in
hear.
that.
It's great.
But yeah, and then if anyone wants to book in for a one-to-one with me doing the energetic cellular regeneration, or my practitioners, then you're very welcome to do that. But yeah, have a look at my YouTube, join that, and my Instagram. And if you or any of your friends are a veteran or a current military person or a first responder, past or current, and have PTSD, I'm only doing it on those people. There's going to be a lot of people, I think, reaching out and say that they had some awful thing happen to them and they have PTSD. I'm doing a study on only first responders and military people. If you would like to work on your traumas and you're not military or a first responder, then please book in with myself or with my practitioners and we will work on you. But the study is only for those people. That's what we're doing. So, and the email address for that is veterans@divineempowerment.com. So get in touch for that. We're looking at doing 100 initially, but I reckon we're going to do a big study, because I just think it needs to be out there, and then we can approach all the people who need to know. Because if we can bring this into the military, if you can bring it into doctor surgeries, it's literally, well, you've seen the results that you've had yourself today, what Tyler's gone through, and you can see how in half an hour it is possible to actually potentially dissolve something like PTSD, which is completely unfathomable. And the nearest thing on the market is EMDR, and it's very good if you get there in 8 sessions. I had half a session, so it's 1/16 of the time that it takes for something comparable. So it is very, very cutting edge. And I really want to get it out there, and I need everybody's help to get it out there as quickly as possible to help as many people as we possibly can, because so many people are suffering. And I feel such an obligation towards the people who are suffering, because I have the key, and it's awful having the key and
You
not
have the
no one
gift.
knowing that I've got the key. Sucks.
Yeah. That I am right there with you, Antonia. Anything, myself, my producer Jane, then the Immersive podcast, that whole, anything we can do to help support this cause, anything we can do to promote, just anything at all that we can do to support you. I am 100% in support of what you're doing. I think it's so altruistic. I just want to reiterate for anybody out there, first responders, military, she's doing this study, and there's no cost. So this is an opportunity to get, something that is, it's not free. It's actually worth quite a bit.
I charge
Um,
£3,000.
quite a bit. Check out her
I
website.
charge £3,000. That's what I charge for a one-to-one, and that is what, like, 1,500. Sorry, it's about
About
$5,000.
$4,000.
About 5,000. I don't know,
Yeah.
$4,500 a week.
So,
That's what
you
I
know,
charge for an hour, because
I'd
that's
look at it like that. If
And
I was a PTSD suffering first responder or veteran, I would be interested in something that might usually cost, 5,000 bucks, but to be a part of not only the greater good, but to get that chance at healing, and also to have documented and be
well,
one of the
all I
pioneers
do,
along
I
with
do
you.
ask that
So,
I'm allowed to interview them on video, and I publish the video on my YouTube
of
and various
course,
different places, and that they fill in a form. That's all that I need
naturally,
from a 3 minute interview, and it's going to take you 10 minutes at the most, time wise, to get out, and then I will be publishing these things and putting these things
yeah,
out. So, but the thing is as well, I
so
do
cool.
question the price that I do, but if you had PTSD for that long and suddenly you no longer have it anymore, what is that worth? But I realize
What does
I
that
price
cost?
myself out of the
Right.
market, and I do that on purpose because I want to be. I'm doing the research and development. I'm doing big projects. You work on with one of my practitioners. They're 1,000, so it's like £1,000, which is what, 1,500 or so dollars. So if you work with one of them, it's much cheaper. And if you're in the UK, you can pay over 3 months. But we're going to do with the PTSD stuff, we're going to do groups for the veterans and for the personnel that we're doing in this study. We don't need to be doing them one at a time. And once we've completed the study, we're going to be doing PTSD groups anyway, for different people to bring
It's
the cost
amazing.
down, because you don't need to be one to one with them. We can do big numbers. And it actually amplifies the energy. So I could be doing big numbers.
I like that actually may be the secret sauce when you get everybody in, a big group of
To
people
amplify
in
it. I
that
want to do
conscious
stadiums.
state in
I'm ready
yeah,
to
I
do
mean a
stadiums. I'm
stadium of
ready to do
people.
PTSD in stadiums. I'm already there. I just need to get the work out there and get the data. So that's why we're doing this study, to get
I,
the data
I
out. Then I can get on the podcast and I can get in the press, and then I can push this work out and start to really help people. I want to be on stage. I want to be in the Rose
I'll
Bowl
be
and
at
doing
that.
this.
Be there too, and I will be that first arena. I will be in the front row with a VIP pass around my neck, supporting something that I heard about early, and now it's going to change the world because PTSD is honestly, a lot of people talk about it. It's becoming more of a mainstream issue, but it's not everybody talks about it. There's a lot of people that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder that you will never hear speak on the matter. Suffering in silence kind of thing. Not just men and women alike. So just I can't say enough praise for what you're doing, and of course, in a world of people who you know maybe misuse their gifts and things like that, or maybe misidentify their gifts. People who, there are fakes and things like that out there. I just want to keep saying that, like, Antonia Harman is the real deal. She's what you read about her on the internet is true. That's why she's where she is. That's why she's 42 and looks the way she looks. That's why she's such a beautiful, energetic presence, such a beautiful presence in the 3D. And that's why I'm telling you here and now that that energetic exchange that she offers is absolutely 100% real. And wizards are real, magic is real, and welcome to the new earth. I guess we're getting close to our time, but
Sure.
anything that you have heard about in this episode, everything will be in the links in the bio. I'm sorry, the links will be in the bio. For Antonia's book, the Divine Empowerment website. I will put the email address for first responders and vets only regarding this study if Antonia wants me to,
Just
and
things veterans
anything
at
else that you've heard
divineempowerment.com.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll make sure to get anything like that available to you guys. Um,
And we'd want to
Antonia,
know
it's always
how
a
it feels for
pleasure.
people. So we did that healing at the beginning. So can you let us know in the comments, please, how that feels? And please do share this video with your friends who have traumas, because it works via video. You can watch as many times as you want and work through loads of your traumas. So please do share it on that. And if anyone else wants to have me on a podcast, I'd love to come on them, because I'm working to get this work out, and I really need everybody's help to actually bring this into the world and help people on a bigger scale than I am currently doing.
Absolutely. All boats rise in a high tide, and let's, of course, bring Antonia's work with PTSD and everything else up with this high tide. Let's all support her rising star. Thank you so much for being here. You're just a treasure, and I hope we could talk again soon. And maybe we'll, talk again once you have a little bit of this study going. We can kind of have an update on that when you're, going on the Joe Rogan show and things like that.
I'm looking. I'm going to
Don't
Austin in
forget about me.
October, so I'm ready. I'm coming for you, Joe, and I'm coming for Chris Williamson. I'm coming for you as well. I'll be there in October.
Humming.
I'll see you there. I'd
Well,
love
you're
Harman.
going. You put it out into the universe, so that's great. And just one more thing I want to tell you on. Everything that you do is on your channel and on Divine Empowerment. If you're a part of that, you can rewatch these videos over and over and over again. So if you've heard prices and things like that, monthly prices for even the first levels, consider the repetitive nature of the content that you're able to get. It's you can rewatch these videos and this video. The small little healing session that we've done here in the beginning of this video actually was very powerful. So I encourage you to rewatch it. Um, Thanks again to our affiliate sponsors, Unified TV and GFL Clothing, clothing for light workers. This is Tyler from the Immersive Podcast. And Antonia, would you like to say anything before we sign off?
Well, I'm very grateful, Tyler, for having me on there, and I'm just really excited about everything that's happening. And yes, just thank you, and just keep positive. There is a way. Magic's real. Okay, so I tell you the last word from my book. I will read it to you because I think it's really cool. So this is my final saying. In the immortal words of Glinda, from the Wizard of Oz, you always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. So
The power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. Antonia,
thank you.
bless you, bless your heart, bless your soul. Have a wonderful day. And everybody out there, we'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.